What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we're going to talk a little bit more about free agents and, of course, happy post Super Bowl Monday. Chiefs didn't win at all. I don't know. Probably people out there that didn't care either way. But for those of us that did watch, for those of us that did have, a rooting interest one way or another in that game, shout out to you if you were right, man. I thought the Eagles whole time. Bunch of people I talk to, hey, who's going to win this game? Who's going to win this game? Who's going? And of course, me doing what I do, and everybody around me knowing how much I pay attention to football. Everybody just kind of hanging on to what I'm saying. I try telling people, dude. I know the Chiefs. They just find ways to win. But this Eagles team is too good. Eagles come out. I mean, they were up 34-0 at almost the end of the third quarter and end up winning that thing 40-22. Eagles are the Super Bowl champions. 2024-2025 season officially over. The next year. The new league year, I believe, starts on March 12th, I believe is the date. Don't hold me to that 100%, but it's somewhere in that range, I believe. March 12th sounds right. But nonetheless, we are on to everybody is now on to 2025. Well, I guess the Eagles still have a parade, but nonetheless, we are on to 2025. And as we continue here as Colts fans talking about, the free agents, how can we mold this team? Right. And over the past couple weeks, there have been definitely days where we haven't had videos. It hasn't been every day. Kind of wanted to space this out, wait till the season was over. Felt like, a lot of Colts fans kind of lost interest in football, which generally happens after we don't make the playoffs. But nonetheless, here we are talking about the defense. We already talked about defensive ends. I went through and was looking at defensive tackles and was looking at our situation, and we're not even going to do a video on defensive tackles. There really isn't like options that you'd want to bring in. There's just really no options to want to bring in. Just go through the draft. There's some really good interior defensive linemen coming out in this draft, just like the past draft. There's some really good interior defensive linemen. We're going to see that again. And with that, I think you just go, one of our higher draft picks should go to somebody with a lot of potential, somebody that has some college production on the interior defensive line. That's just what I'm thinking there. So we're going to move straight to linebacker. And this is obviously going to be a hot topic. Right? Grant Stewart, possibly not going to be a Colt anymore. EJ Speed, almost definitely not going to be a Colt anymore. So you have Zaire Franklin, and then who are you going to have behind that? Now, of course, we have Jalen Carlisle, which I love. Drafting him last year, thought he was a really good pick, right? Going from safety to linebacker and having that versatility, and he showed it at different times later in the season. And I think his ability to be able to cover from that linebacker position, especially in this Lou Anarumo defense, the ways you can have a former safety turn linebacker be able to attack teams with his speed, with his size, the way you can try to find a way to use him kind of like a Kyle Hamilton, which is an interesting topic coming up in this conversation. He was going to come up anyways. And as we go through here and talk about the options for linebacker, of course, let me know what you think. Who do you think we should bring in? I picked out 4 guys. I think these 4 guys all have their own value that they could easily bring to our team, make us a better football team. And then, of course, it's going to be how will the pieces fall if any of these guys do come in? How do they play? There's so much nickel run in the NFL. Of course, Lou Anarumo's defense is going to be multiple, but he already said he likes to have the same personnel grouping in there throughout different formations and different play types so that he can keep his best players on the field. So with that, how many linebackers are going to be playing all at one time? When you really look at it and getting started here, we have Dre Greenlaw, and Dre Greenlaw was really the first one that came up for Colts fans where it's like, hey, let's go get this guy in the offseason. And PFF is actually has the Indianapolis Colts as one of the favorite landing spots for Dre Greenlaw, which is very interesting, would be very good. Of course, the concern there is going to be, can he be the player that he was before? We're a football team that, especially at that linebacker position, like we were supposed to be set at linebacker, at least for the next couple years coming up. And of course, with the injuries to Darius Leonard turned Shaq Leonard, he, his career changed, and you just hope the same thing doesn't happen to Dre Greenlaw, whether he comes here or not. Just hope that he's able to still be a really good player. And honestly, his situation would actually probably work pretty well for us, honestly, because you got to think, pretty much with the situation that we're in, a lot, if not all, the free agents that we bring in are going to be getting 1-year deals, but for their own purpose and for the team's purpose. Like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen after this season. We could have to blow this whole thing up. Let's give you a 1-year deal. We'll pad the numbers a little bit, get you up there. And with Dre Greenlaw, you might even be able to get a little bit of a discount because he's a guy coming off a major injury. He's now going to be out of football for quite a while. Actually, I think he might have actually ended up getting back into a couple games at the end of the season. Maybe not because they were out of it. Don't remember how. I think there was talk about him coming back at least. But nonetheless, really basically missing the entire season after getting hurt in their final game last year. The good news is that he's only going to be 28 years old, still a young guy. So again, somebody that could possibly come in, have good production, be able to be a valuable asset for us. Him, Zaire Franklin, Jalen Carlisle in the middle, and then of course Kenny Moore in that slot that gets kind of lumped in there with the linebackers because of the role that the slot plays and how Kenny plays the game. And then the next option here that I have is going to be Isaiah Simmons, somebody that I was high on coming out of college. Right, and this is a guy, I mentioned Kyle Hamilton earlier. This is a guy that's really found his footing. Kyle Hamilton, Isaiah Simmons, these are two guys that came into the NFL and really couldn't get a good footing under him over the first couple years in Isaiah Simmons' case. And really, at the time Isaiah Simmons came in, Arizona was in a transition phase, trying to figure things out. And then finally, between his own NFL experience and finding a coach, being able to really find a role that can fit the talents of Isaiah Simmons, he really started to become a really good player, moves on to the Giants. And I thought he played well for the Giants. He's going to be a free agent. And this is a guy that Kyle Hamilton has been an absolute savage for the Ravens, right? His turnaround and him being able to learn different parts of the defense and now transitioning back to safety and transform the Ravens defense from one of the worst secondaries to literally the best secondary in the NFL over the last part of the season. So I think Isaiah Simmons has a ton of value. I think he's an absolute freak athletically. He's 26 years old right now. By the time the season comes up, he'll be 27. And I think his versatility in Lou Anarumo's defense, when you need a safety that can play up at the line of scrimmage, you can have him rush the passer if you want. He can drop back and he can get in coverage, but you're playing this guy from that linebacker spot and he has the range that he has. I just think it has immense value, and I think it would be, it'd be cool to see Isaiah Simmons in a Colts uniform again. I was a fan of him in college. I'm not even a big college fan, but dude, when you have people like Isaiah Simmons, people like Kyle Hamilton, like so hard not to just be enamored with those people because of what they can do in all the different areas that they can do it in. So Isaiah Simmons, very interesting option. It'll be very interesting to see what the market is for a guy like Isaiah Simmons, who has found his own in the NFL, but was on a terrible team like the New York Giants that could cap his number in free agency, which could help us in that regard. But then we have Bobby Wagner, who went over to the Commanders. Now, I've mentioned multiple Commanders as we've gone through this, and my favorites are the guys that were with the Commanders, okay? When you think about the quarterback, Marcus Mariota, my favorite. Because he's a good veteran quarterback, a lot of starting experience, a lot of NFL experience, a lot of college experience, right? He's played a lot of football. Coming in, being the backup to Anthony Richardson would be great. He also is a good veteran player that just helped a rebuilding Washington team and a very young quarterback, actually older than Anthony Richardson, but a young quarterback, right? Able to help him figure out the NFL. Zach Ertz, same thing. Great veteran to bring in the room. Had success in his NFL career. They bring him in. Bobby Wagner, a lot of success throughout his NFL career. They bring him in to be the middle of that defense and to be able to coach that defense on the field. And I think it was brilliant. How the Commanders did it in 2024 was brilliant. Obviously, being able to do what they did, they changed leadership from literally the very top down, and everything changed. And they went out and they got great veteran leadership to put around all these young guys that they're bringing in. They're trying to build a new culture, and it worked. And I think Bobby Wagner's the same as the other guys, right? Mariota and Ertz, like these veteran guys. And if we bring Bobby Wagner in, of course, has a good relationship already with Zaire Franklin, so that could be a thing, right? Of course, Zaire Franklin. If you don't know Zaire Franklin, his I assume favorite linebacker of all time. Bobby Wagner talks about him all the time. I think that relationship could help possibly land Bobby Wagner. Of course, at his age, Bobby Wagner is going to want to go somewhere where he can try to win another Super Bowl real quick. But nonetheless, again, he's had incredible amounts of success throughout his career. And if we were able to somehow get him, I'd be very happy with that. Just as, again, a veteran in the room, he wouldn't have to play all the time. He's a guy that you could put in situationally, a guy that you can put in there and trust to be able to execute what you need him to execute. But you really have Franklin and Carles to be able to handle the heavy load at that linebacker position. So I think that could be really good. And then, of course, this last option here, as I went through, there's some good options, but I think Zach Bond, guy that was up for Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, Pat Surtain II wins that, and deservedly so. Incredible football player. But Zach Bond came out for the Eagles, somebody that nobody really ever heard of, came out, gets signed to the Eagles, has to play, and was incredible. And I mean, he did everything. He could do everything. He was like, if you bring Zach Bond in, it's almost a carbon copy. What he was able to do this past year is in a different way, almost a carbon copy of Shaq Leonard, the impact that Shaq Leonard had on football games. That's the impact that Zach Bond had on football games this year for the Eagles. Right. I mean, of course, one of the league leaders in tackles, but also able to get sacks, punching the ball out, getting interceptions, like doing literally everything. Zach Bond had an incredible season. Might have been an all-pro, something of the sort, I believe. And again, just an incredible year by Zach Bond, an incredible player, somebody that I think, again, you bring in. And I think any of these guys you bring in and you have them split time with Jalen Carles. I think that's probably the move. Even though I could actually see it the other way where they're splitting time with Zaire Franklin, but he makes too much money to come off the field. So that's probably not going to happen. But I honestly, dude, this is one of the only conversations that we've had like this about the four guys that we're picking, where it's like, no matter which one of these four, if we signed one of these four, I would be a happy man. If we signed two of these four, I'd be real happy, right? Really get some depth, right? We're losing a couple linebackers, so if we were able to go out and Zach Bond probably going to be too expensive, but if you can get like Bobby Wagner and Dre Greenlaw, or Bobby Wagner and Isaiah Simmons, or Dre Greenlaw, Isaiah Simmons, like that would be fantastic, incredible. But that's being a little greedy. If I had to pick one of these, right, for the purpose of our conversation and for trying to build this team the best way possible, when you look at the Lou Anarumo defense, when you look at where we are going forward, we're really not in a spot where we need a guy like Bobby Wagner, right? Especially at that position. I think when you talk about guys like Dre Greenlaw and Isaiah Simmons, it would just make more sense getting a younger guys that can fly around, right? We need more speed on the field on defense. And unfortunately, that's just not Bobby Wagner. His veteran leadership for the entire team and being able to help us set a real culture and to have a standard and to be able to hold people accountable would be incredible. And that's the value that he would bring. But on the field, I think a guy like Isaiah Simmons, when you think about the price we can get him for in free agency, and you think about the way Lou Anarumo is going to try to attack on his defense and the things that you can have Isaiah Simmons do, I just think that at the end of the day, Isaiah Simmons could be a powerhouse on this defense. You could even, we're going to go through safeties. I have other ideas for safeties, but you could have formations where he is your deep safety, or he is your second safety, right? Nick Cross being the deep safety, and you have Isaiah Simmons, playing, in between the line of scrimmage up to 20 yards out, right? And just being unpredictable. Again, using his explosiveness to be able to cover a lot of ground quickly, being able to get after the quarterback, being able to cover, and being able to take the ball away. That's really what we need, is somebody that can come and take the ball away. I think Isaiah Simmons can be extremely extremely valuable in the Lou Anarumo defense. Of course, again, I want to know what you guys think. Of course, we're going to put a poll out as well. And when those polls come out, again, I need your guys' opinion. We're going to have separate videos, right? I'm going to do a video about the team that you built, and I'm going to do a video about the team I built. And we're going to see what sounds the best in terms of, hey, the team that we're building, can we afford this team? And are we going to be able, like, how are we going to look if this is a team we go for? So you guys let me know your opinion down in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. Of course, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime there's any more content coming out. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.